Gotta climb to the top, but we're never gonna stop. When the low, yeah, we going high. We're going high. We're going high. We're going high. Yeah, 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 yeah. In the air, yeah, with you, we'll never leave it. When the low, yeah, we going high. Gotta climb to the top, no, we're never gonna stop. When the low, yeah, we going high.
What is up? Buckle up, Betties. This is your podcast host, Ashley Morrow, coming at you for episode 6. It's very exciting to be here with you on this evening or morning because you don't know it's a podcast. I could be doing this in the middle of the night naked. I'm not, but I could be. Oh, God. I would like to go ahead and apologize because my sound engineer got a new soundboard and thinks he's like, I don't know, think of somebody techie and nerdy, and that's who he thinks he is. Also, big news in the Buckle Up Betty's world. This Betty got married over the weekend to the sound engineer, Skip Nichols, so I think he thinks now he can push my buttons. There's a sound effect for that, but he was too late. You don't know how to work your machine. Anyways, so Betties, I've been giving a lot of thought to the time that we spend together, and I've been reading your reviews and your feedback, and I appreciate so many of you guys messaging me and telling me, you know, what you like and what you don't like. And one of the things that you guys don't like, which is really sweet, I think, is that I'm not doing enough of these. And one of the reasons why I haven't been doing a lot is that the first part where I come up with sort of like funny stories or timely stories, things that are happening in the media, it's becoming harder and harder for me to come up with that stuff. So the motivational part is really the part that you guys say, we want more of that. So we're going to switch the format up a little bit. And just do the motivational part for now. So I'm pretty excited about that. So diving in, I want to take you all the way back to kindergarten. Dream with me here, people. So when I went to kindergarten in Haleyville, Alabama, and I thought I was in the cool kindergarten class because our classroom was like its own little building by itself, and it was Miss All's. I don't remember how to spell her last name, but Miss All's kindergarten class. And I thought I was big stuff because I went to my own little school. Anyways, I can remember that coming around Halloween, we had a cat that we got to color. And of course, I wanted to color mine black because it was Halloween and black cat, and it's very significant in my little 5-6-year-old brain. And I can remember I colored it and I was coloring it in so dark because I wanted it to be like black, like shiny black. And I mean, I'm going through this black crayon. Well, I keep coloring, and it's time for nap time. And I'm like, please don't make me lay down and take a nap. And so she keeps letting me color. But at some point she was like, actually, you have to give it up. And I only had the tail left. And I had to color the tail in very light to be able to get done. Now, is this an insignificant story? Maybe it could have been to someone who's not as mentally ill as me, but I don't know if you're like me and you sort of have selective OCD, like my house looks absolutely insane, but my cutlery drawer is perfect. You know, there's a lot of crazy stuff in my car, but my wallet is perfect. You know, I have these sort of very specific things. I have thought about that cat tail. I'm 38. What are you when you go into kindergarten? 5? I have thought about that cat tail for over 3 decades. Is that weird? Yes. Is there a point? Also, yes. So what I think about that is, I think that so many times we can leave things undone, right? We think we can get to them later. We leave it undone. We always think we can go back. We always think it doesn't matter that much. Maybe we have a fear of going back. Maybe we even have a fear of getting stuff started in the first place. I watched a story this morning on Facebook about a girl named Deshauna Barber, and she was actually crowned Miss America, I don't know, just a couple of years ago. And she talked about how when she first got into pageants, it was because this woman had come up to her wherever she was working in, like a menial startup retail position when she was very, very young. And she said, I think you could be Miss USA one day. Have you ever thought about doing a pageant? And so she does a pageant and she loses, and she does another pageant and she loses, and she ends up doing her state pageant like 5 or 6 years in a row. And then it was that last year that she won it that she then went on to compete in Miss USA, and she was crowned Miss USA. And one of the things that I loved about this talk that she gave, which was at a college graduation ceremony, was do not fear failure, but please be terrified of regret. Now, I look back on those, 33 some odd years that I didn't get to color that black tail, and I feel a lot of regret about that. But I think that so many of us carry regret for things we left unsaid in a relationship, and things that we've left undone in our business, or things that we haven't done. I think that everyone has a greatness that has been spoken into them and that has been planted into them. And sometimes it's really hard to recognize your greatness. And sometimes it's really hard to give that a name and to call it what it is. I know that when I got back into consulting a few years ago, I had a really hard time justifying what I was charging. I had a hard time sort of justifying my place at the table because I wasn't totally sure I earned it. And so I found myself apologizing for pricing, and I found myself apologizing really for my space at the table. And then I heard a girl talk at a training seminar, and she said that she charges $10,000 for a talk. 10,000 doll hairs. Like, this is a ridiculous sum of money for a talk. And she said that she charges $10,000 whether she speaks for 15 minutes or whether she speaks for 45 minutes. Because at $10,000, you're not paying for her time, but you're paying for the quality of her content. Now, Betty's, that was a huge slap in the face. You're paying for the quality of her content. What hit home for me from that takeaway, from that seminar, was I know as a business consultant what I can do for a business. And it sort of taught me to be able to speak into that I'm really good, that when you pay me, you pay for my experience and the failures that I've had and the successes that I've had and the successes and failures of my entire team. And there is value and quality to that content and to that advice. And I'm so glad that I have not let fear and regret keep me back from doing the things that I know has been spoken into me to do. I love to help people. I love to talk. I travel across the country doing speaking engagements and events, and I always have a lot of fun when I do it. But I can't imagine if I had let my fear of regret or my fear of failure keep me from that, okay? So it would be really easy for me to say, I don't deserve to get on stage and speak because I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not smart enough, I've not accomplished enough. Betty's, let me tell you something. We need more female mentors. There was a report that came out a few years ago that women, when it comes to applying for a job, will apply for a job if they meet 85 to 90% of the requirements for the job, where a man will apply if he meets 50%. Whew, I want you to, that is, and it's because a lot of times as women, we have been taught differently, to see things differently, to speak things differently, to feel things differently, to experience things differently. And so when it comes to female mentorship, here's what happens. Women say, well, when I make X amount, I will be enough to pour that into someone else. When I'm on TV, when I've opened my own business, when I've done this, and women push and push and push, and there's never enough left over to do anything when the bar keeps changing, when we keep saying, well, I'm not enough now. I'm not the president of the company. And then you become the president of the company and you're like, well, I'm not the president of my own company. Okay. Betties, we need to recognize and speak to the value of who and what we are, get past the fear of failure. Don't let things be undone. Don't keep that cattail light gray, color it in dark black, and speak that into other people. I find, and I think I've shared this before, when we fear our own success and our own greatness, I don't know that I can think of too many things that to me are sadder or more disappointing. I had a client one time who had invented and designed this really cool product. And when he was going through my boot camp, I said, well, how much of it have you sold? He said, well, I've really been spending the last year sort of getting our systems down and how we were going to intake orders and how that workflow was going to go. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But how many sales have you had? None. So you're telling me you have spent a whole year not making product, not selling product, not pushing product, not creating product, not promoting product because you wanted to get the system down that will break after your first 100 orders. And that is fear. It is fear of success. It is fear of failure. What if he put his product out there and it failed? That would be terrible. You know, I invented a product called Alchemy. You know, if I had gone home after the first show when so many people told me no, when I had a man come up to me and said, I would not put your product on my dog, much less my child. I could have packed up my bags and I could have gone home. And my God, I'm glad I didn't. I got to meet so many cool people at every market I've been to. Every market has opened another door and really is sort of what pushed me to get to sit here today and have my own podcast, which is pretty cool, right? So don't let that fear of failure, and then don't live with the regret of not knowing. I knew that alchemy was in me. I knew this product had to exist. And I can remember sitting up one day and looking at my husband at the time and saying, I am not willing to go one more day dreaming about this product. I have to put this into action. And Betty's, I hope you have that in you too. I hope that you recognize the greatness in you, and maybe that greatness is raising your family in a way that is spiritually motivating or financially motivating, whatever it is that motivates you. I hope that's to lead your family that way. And maybe it's to start a business, and maybe it's to invent a product, and maybe it's to run for office. We don't have near enough great people in office. Please, God in heaven, this is not that kind of podcast, but don't get me started. We all need more people that are involved. Also, don't think that you're not a leader just because you're not loud. Okay? So many times we confuse extroverts and people who are loud and people who are aggressive with leadership. And that's not always the same. There's not a one-to-one correlation there. If you're an introvert, but you feel like you were driven to something more, that's okay. You don't have to be an extrovert to be a leader. You don't have to be an extrovert to invent a product. You don't have to be an extrovert to run a business. You absolutely do not have to be there, but you absolutely have to recognize the greatness that's in you and to be able to speak to that, to be able to move it forward. All I know is, Betty's, you can't leave the tail uncolored. Don't live one more day in your life with whatever your cattail is, leaving it uncolored. All right, Betty's, it's been real. Till next time.
Gotta climb to the top, but we're never gonna stop when the low, yeah.